Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed. Long ago, in the Dreamtime, the world was barren, a flat plain missing trees and bushes, free of any hills, mountains, rivers, or creeks, not even any animals to populate this empty world. The only beings to exist were small bands of humans scattered throughout the continent, and the great Rainbow Serpent, Goorialla. Goorialla was gigantic in size and magical in nature, with scales that shimmered with every hue and color one could imagine. Yet for all his greatness, the great snake felt a loneliness inside that ate away at him. So he set off to the north to find his people, those who spoke his tongue. When he reached what is now known as Cape York, he formed a great mountain called Narbulgan. He coiled upon its peak and listened for signs of people. Goorialla heard voices upon the wind, human voices, but they spoke a strange language that he could not understand. His people were not here, and so he continued his search. As the Rainbow Serpent slithered and slunk across the land, his movements shaped the landscape, digging deep gorges and forming rivers and creeks in the tracks he left behind as he journeyed northward, with trees and plants sprouting upon the newly fertile soil. Goorialla continued to form mountains as vantage points, some long and formed of granite, others with sharp peaks and large caves. He took rest at Fairview, coiling himself round and round, digging a ditch that soon filled with water, and became a lily lagoon. At long last, Goorialla heard the voices of his people as they sang and danced in a great bora. He hid quietly not far off before making himself known, and the people welcomed him among them. Goorialla taught the people how to dress themselves, adorn themselves in the finest ornaments, and even new dances, and they all danced and danced until they grew tired. A storm was brewing and oncoming fast, and so the people built their humpies, their shelters. That is, all except for the Bill, the Rainbow Lorikeet brothers, who could not build their own shelters, nor find room among any of the people. In desperation, the brothers asked Goorialla for aid as the rain came pelting down on their heads. The only thing the great serpent could offer was shelter inside of his mouth, an offer that the boys gladly, though probably not wisely, accepted. You see, anything that enters the mouth of a snake is inevitably swallowed whole, eaten, and Goorialla, the Rainbow Serpent, was no exception to this rule. The two boys were eaten alive by the giant snake. Ashamed of himself, sorry for the two boys, and afraid of what the tribe may do when they discovered the boys missing, Goorialla decided to abandon his newfound people and make his way further north to Bora, the only natural mountain in Australia not created by the serpent himself. The next morning, the people discovered the boys were missing, and Goorialla nowhere to be found. They knew that the boys were within the beast's stomach. They took to their spears and tracked down the mighty Rainbow Serpent with vengeance in their hearts. The hunters followed the great snake tracks to the steep mountain, where Goorialla was coiled up and sound asleep. The best climbers made their ascent, and after days and nights of climbing, they at last found their quarry, still asleep. As silent as death, the hunters snuck over to the great snake and slashed open his stomach to release the two boys. But the boys were no longer human. They were transformed into beautiful parrots, whose feathers were colored as vividly as the scales of the rainbow serpent. The two birds flew away, and the hunters ran off, and Goorialla awoke to find his stomach empty, cut open like a caught fish. The Rainbow Serpent was enraged, and with his great strength he tore apart the mountain, sending pieces of it flying for many, many miles, where they formed the mountains, hills, and valleys of today. The people of the land, those who spoke his language, and others, were terrified. They ran and took shelter. Many were killed by flying debris, and others who managed to hide were magically transformed into the animals, birds, insects, and plants found today in Australia. When Goorialla's rage had subsided, only a small hill remained of the once skyscraping mountain, and the Rainbow Serpent slithered down and into the sea, where he remains to this very day. Now the remaining people must look after the newly made world and all of the plants and beasts living within it, many of which were once people just like them. And the people never forgot the great Rainbow Serpent, who in his search for a people and in his rage created the world as it is known. The shooting stars seen in the sky are said to be the eyes of Goorialla, watching over everyone and the world they live in.